Hi, and welcome to another Practical Project Management webinar. Today we're going to be talking about root cause analysis, and that's how you get the answer to the question, what just happened? As I usually do, I'm going to start with some information about me, so those of you who don't know anything about me and haven't been to a webinar before can have a little confidence that I actually know what I'm talking about. My name is Kim Wasson. My education is a bachelor's degree in computer science from Cal State and a master's in management science and engineering from Stanford. I held positions in various companies from line engineer to vice president, and the companies were as big as IBM and eBay and as small as brand new startups. And I used project management concepts and tools and techniques in every position in every company. I've had my own consulting company for 10 years now, and I specialize in tailored solutions. I do project and program management, and I coach in those areas, and I untangle messy projects. I also do process improvement and help folks with time management. And my specialty is distributed and international teams. So you can see more about me and have a wealth of other information at my website, ivybay.com. So let's get into the meat of this now. What shall we talk about today? I'll define root cause analysis, since that's really what we're talking about today. We'll talk about why you do it, how you do it. We'll go through Ishikawa diagrams a little bit because that's a big root cause analysis tool. We'll talk about what to do if you haven't found the root cause, and we'll walk through some examples. And then, of course, we'll wrap up with what things you should remember from this. Okay, what is root cause analysis? It's an organized way to get a good handle on an issue and understand why it happened. And once you understand why it happened, then you can figure out how to keep it from happening again. Pretty simple concept. So why bother? Well, if something big has happened, something bad has happened, it's important to understand why. Because if you don't understand why, you're probably going to have the same problem again because you haven't fixed whatever is causing the problem. If you do a quick analysis, what you're most often going to do is take care of the symptoms, but you may miss the actual cause. And that means that you haven't really fixed the problem. So when you have a structured method of looking at an issue to find the root cause, it helps identify really all the possible causes. You get a really good breadth of information. You get a good way to respond to this kind of a problem again. And let's talk a little bit about when you do a root cause analysis. Usually there's been some major upset in your project. Something bad has happened. And this works as well with home stuff like a pipe broke as it does with a software development project. So you want to do this right away before conditions change significantly that make it then harder to uncover the problem. If you're doing an emergency fix or you have to do a recovery, like your pipe, you have a pipe that broke in your house, you really have to, fix it before you do anything else. You do that first. You can use root cause analysis as a triage methodology. What happened? What do I need to fix first? Although, of course, if it's something as obvious as a broken pipe, you know what you're going to fix first. But that's not always the case in your projects. So the big question then is, how do you do a root cause analysis? The first and most important thing is to define the issue, and you need to be very clear and concise. You don't want to go chasing down side issues, things that are not really the main problem. So make sure that you have a good handle on what the issue is, that everyone working on the root cause analysis, because often you're doing this with multiple people. And then get a timeline of events leading up to the issue happening. So you're going to want to do some peripheral, you're going to want to include some peripheral events in there, things that could possibly have affected the project and caused the issue, or could have contributed to the issue. Obviously, you don't want what's happening in the world today, but you need to expand a little beyond the immediate project so that if something outside your project has caused the problem, you catch it. So now you know what the problem is, you know what happened around the time of the problem, so then you're going to collect data. And that's going to be about, more details about the issue, what it looked like, and you're going to be brainstorming on possible causes of it. You're going to analyze the data. One of the best ways to do this and keep it straight is to chart it out. And I'm going to give you a couple of methodologies for doing that. We'll talk about cause diagrams. I'm not going to show you cause diagrams. There are actual cause and effect diagrams. There's an entire methodology around this. If you are working on a space shuttle, you will be using that extremely formal and complex methodology because you absolutely have to. If you're trying to figure out why a pipe burst, if you're trying to figure out why your application crashed, that's going to be too heavyweight. It's going to slow you down. It's going to be too complex. So we're not actually going to go through cause diagrams in this webinar, but I wanted to let you know that they exist, and you can do a quick search on the web. It'll come up with it immediately, or you can email me and I will give you some links so you can see what that methodology looks like. More generally used are block diagrams and Ishikawa diagrams, and we're going to walk through those. So now you have all the data, you've brainstormed on the causes, now you're going to put all that information together and come up with the cause, and sometimes there's more than one. And then once you know the cause, you can figure out how to keep the problem from happening again. When you figure that out, it's a lot like a risk analysis. How much is it going to cost to do that versus dealing with the problem again now that you know what the root cause is? Because sometimes the evasive action is more expensive than it's worth. So you'll make that trade-off at that point. So this is an Ishikawa diagram. They're called fishbone diagrams often because obviously they look like a fish, although the tail doesn't really do anything. But what you do is at the top, you put the problem. And then you put possible causes off the sides. And when you have a cause, this is like working with a 2-year-old. You're going to ask why. This happened. Why did it happen? Well, because this happened. And why did this happen? And we'll walk through a little bit of how to do that. Now, this is one of the methodologies for using Ishikawa diagrams, and it's a pretty good one, is to sort your causes into types. And this is one of the most popular ones, where you look at machines, material, people, measurement, methods, and Mother Nature, or kind of outside your control. So that's one way of looking at it. That's not a base part of Ishikawa diagrams. You can put whatever you want to in here, and you'll see that in the examples I'm using, I've just done some random stuff. But this is a structured way of looking at it, or you might have your own list of things, of areas that you look for root cause, depending on what kind of a project it is. Maybe you're not using any machines, so that's just not going to be workable, but there's something else. So that's what an Ishikawa diagram looks like. And I'm just going to show you, block diagrams are pretty straightforward. I'm just going to show them to you when we get to there. So what happens if you go through this exercise and you don't find a root cause? You have a couple of things you can do for further investigation. Sometimes it's just the first round, but you can do a few things. You can bring in other people who know enough about your project to make some suggestions about what the cause might be. You can bring them in, you can show them what you've done, and you can discuss with them. So they understand what your project looks like, and they're probably going to have a viewpoint of peripheral activities and can help you with that. You might bring in someone who's an expert in the technology or the area. If your pipe burst, maybe you want to bring a plumber in if you haven't figured out what caused it to burst, for example. They may not know about your pipes, but they know about pipes and plumbing in general, so they may be able to tell you something foundational about your problem that you hadn't thought about. And finally, you can describe it to someone who knows nothing about it. They may ask just the right question to send you in the right direction. They may not ask any questions, but the fact that you have to explain the issue and what you've looked at as causes to someone who doesn't know anything about it means that any assumptions you and your team have made you're going to find, because you're explaining in detail and not skipping over things that the team understands. So some of those things can get you a root cause. If none of those things pan out, keep looking, but save your work. If it happens again, you know where you started, you know what you looked at, and something may pop up in the future so that you can pick this work up and continue with putting some things in place so that the issue doesn't reoccur. So we're going to walk through a couple of examples so you can see how this all works. Here's the first one. Your dogs are gaining weight. You have 2 dogs. Your smaller one went in for an annual checkup, and you found out that she gained a lot of weight. So you go home, check the second dog, find out the second dog has gained some weight, maybe not quite as much. So there's not really an obvious answer to this. The vet gave you some suggestions, but you need to figure out why they gained weight. So the first thing is create a timeline. So here's a timeline. Let's say March 2nd, we took the dog in for shots and she weighed 23.8 pounds. The only other real thing that happened in the household, all our work is the same, all our hours are the same, everything else we could think of the same. The only other thing that we could think of that changed is getting a new kitten. And then in November, you go in for the vet appointment and suddenly the dog weighs 27 pounds, which is a huge weight gain, huge percentage. So now we have this little timeline. We don't know when exactly in this timeline that it happened. So here's an Ishikawa diagram, and here's what we've done. This is a little hard to read, so I'm going to walk you through it. Here's the head. See, it's got a nice little fish around it, so you kind of can see it. But by the way, Visio has Ishikawa diagrams if you need an automated way to, or a system, an application to do this. But you can just do this on a whiteboard. Your dog is gaining weight. That's the problem. So some of the things that you're looking at their food, you're looking at their activity, and the only other thing on the timeline is the cat. So what could be causing additional calories? The amount of food or the type of food? That's kind of it. Your activity level, has there been an injury? Not as far as you know, and certainly not with both of them. Could it be cat related? Or, someone, are they finding the cat food? Is it stress related because there's a cat and somehow they're getting, gaining weight from that? Are they somehow getting to the cat food that we didn't know about? So here's the cause. This is the block diagram. So here's our cause at the top. It's our fat dog. So here are our 3 primary cause areas: food, activity level, and a new cat. And you can see we've put, actually I didn't put injury here, but injury would go under here. So that's what that diagram looks like. So now we're looking at this. There's nothing obvious, but we've done our information, we've gathered it. So we've looked at the food. We're already using low-calorie dog food. We had reduced the amount of dog food and added green beans. That's what the vet said to do. So that's the content. None of that has changed, and they're not getting a lot of people food. None of that's changed. They're not getting more of anything. None of our diets have changed. So we're going to move on because we're eliminating the food as a cause. But we double checked it, made sure that the manufacturers didn't change anything. There is no substantial change in activity level. We knew that. We're watching them, right? So in general, they have a clean bill of health. So these are the only, it's how much they're taking in versus how much they're taking out, given that the level of activity is constant. So that's what we get to. So what is the root cause? The only other household change was the kitten. So we're going to look at that pretty quickly. There's no way they can get to the dogs. But further investigation, this is obviously a true story, reveals that your husband is giving the dogs all the leftover cat food in an effort to be efficient, to not waste food, because the kitten is very picky. Bingo. The protein content in cat food is much higher than in dog food. That's where they're getting all their extra calories, even though it seems like a little bit. And so the resolution to the issue, the way to stop it from happening, is stop feeding the dogs cat food and keep it that way. So that's a simple example. We're going to try a second one, and none of these are really project related because as we so often do, I want to make it really very understandable, no matter what your background is. So let's talk about, you have a teenage son. This is not a true story for me, but you have a teenage son, his grades are slipping, and it's a trend. So it's not a one-time thing, you're seeing it get worse. First thing is create a timeline. So the first grading period, he got straight A's, which is what he usually does. Swim season begins, as it does every year. Your son's been a swimmer since he was very little. Now he's a teenager. He's on swim team, happens every year. But his grading period 2, the midpoint report, he got 2 B's, not straight A's. And by the time he got to the end of the grading period, he added a C to that list. So things are not going well. And there was a 2-week holiday in there. So here's our Ishikawa diagram. The grades are slipping. The major causes that we can think of is swim team. We saw that started. Are his classes more difficult? Are they more difficult than usual? Are they at a faster pace? We're looking at course load. We're looking at homework time. So here are some following things down and asking why. Could be that it's less than needed. Why is that? Do we think, why? Why is there less time than needed on homework? Time on the cell phone and texting seems to have gone up. What about distractions? That's the other cause that we could think of with homework. If he's distracted, why is it? Time on the cell phone and texting. And this is the kind of thing that you will often see when you're doing root cause analysis, is you start to get down to something that's reappearing more than once, and that's where you want to take a second look. So here's our block diagram. Here are the grades. Here's something that else had happened. There's a new girlfriend. Somehow I missed that in the Ishikawa diagram, but that's okay. We're going to go through it anyway. So course load, course difficulty, he got a new girlfriend. So dating and talk text. So perhaps, and this happens a lot too, we didn't put it on our timeline because we weren't thinking about it. But when we started to get here and we started to see the talk and text going up, then we remembered there's a new girlfriend in the mix. Okay, so I did it on purpose. Some days it's hard to get started. So here's the homework time, not enough or distraction, and then extracurricular activities is just swimming. And so that's what we're looking at. So we're starting to see where this trend is going. So we do our data analysis. The classes are harder this year, but they haven't changed grading period to grading period. So that doesn't explain the change. Swimming is the same number of practices, same amount of time. But the cell phone talk time and text increased suddenly, and they're correlating. So putting this all together, we think the secondary root cause is there's not enough time and attention devoted to the homework. So we think that specific times for doing homework need to be set aside. You just need to focus during those times. But the primary cause is the new girlfriend, and it's driving the secondary cause. So we think that not only are you going to set aside specific times, but you need to turn off your cell phone during the homework times. Other than that, we're cool with it. So that's kind of the end of the examples. You can see how this works. The concept is pretty simple. In practice, this is just a structured way to look at it, but the core of this really is identifying potential causes and then gathering enough data to do analysis and see if any of those are really it. And also the need to continue to ask why. Do that 2-year-old thing. So the things that you want to remember about root cause analysis. The first or obvious cause of an issue is often a symptom. It's not the root cause. That's why you do root cause analysis. A lot of times you'll address the symptom and the problem will reoccur, and that's when you dig in and do a root cause analysis, which is fine, depending on the size of the problem. If the problem is a big problem, a significant problem, an extremely disruptive problem, even if you think you have found the cause without doing any of this work, you probably want to address that cause and then come back and do a full root cause analysis, because you don't want that big disruption to happen again, and you may have just addressed a symptom, which will make the problem go away for now. Doing the additional work will, if you don't turn up anything new, it will give you some measure of security that you actually did find it on the first pass. Very, very important to define the issue clearly and concisely. What happened? So, for example, if you have an application that you're running in your business and it crashes, just saying it crashed is not really going to help you. So you want to have the details saying it crashed at this time, here's what the system looked like at the time, here were the messages that we got, right? And anything that was tried immediately to resolve the issue, restarting the system, things like that, you're going to want in that problem definition, so you know what worked and what didn't immediately. A lot of things that happen, you will do something immediately. If your pipe bursts, you're going to turn the water off to the house right away. You want to make sure that you said you turned the water off to the house right away. So define your issue very clearly and concisely. Get your timeline together. That's events not only with your project, but peripherally that might have caused it. So the pipe bursting, maybe you turned the water off inside, and when you turned it on, it suddenly burst. But maybe the temperature got below freezing outside, or maybe someone was doing some work around a pipe and caused things to move, or maybe you replaced a pipe somewhere else, a few weeks ago in your house, and maybe the pressure then built up in this other section of pipe that was, so what you may find out is you have a lot of bad pipes that you're going to want to replace before they come apart. So the timeline is very important. Just think when we're looking at the dog food and the kitten, if we didn't put the kitten in there, and think about the fact that in the grades slipping example, we didn't put anything about the new girlfriend in, but as we started to look at other factors, that popped up. So the timeline is important, and updating it as you find new data that might be relevant is also important. You don't have to stick with whatever you came up with first. You can add things to it. Analyze the data. Start with some charting. And that can be a circular exercise. You can start with some charting, analyze the data. You may come back with some other root causes. And then identify and evaluate the corrective action. So in both of our examples, the corrective action was really pretty simple, and it didn't have any cost really associated with it. Other examples, it might. If you need to, if the answer for your broken pipe is you need to replace all the plumbing in your house, that may not be reasonable. You may not have the money to do that, or whatever. You may choose to implement a piece of that, look at danger areas or whatever, or do it over time, but that may not be something that makes sense to do all at once, or even at all. You see this in risk engineering for big things. How big of a dam are you going to build? How many safeguards are you going to build into that before it becomes prohibitively expensive for the risk potential? And so that's the other side of this corrective action thing, is how likely is it to happen? How much does it cost to fix it when it happens, right? And how much is it going to cost to put this evasive action, to put the procedures in place to avoid the problem? And then one of the things that you want to do eventually is you want to go back for more analysis, right? Especially if the problem reoccurs when you've done this, you got to go back. You got to look at your data and see what you missed. And maybe if it happens the second time, you are going to have more data. So don't just take the data from the first occurrence, build on it. Start with that as your base and build on this next occurrence, because that may establish a pattern that you can see. Okay. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Okay. What the question is, what do you do if you just can't find the root cause? If you fixed the problem and you can't, you've gone through everything that you can go through, you have to put it on the back burner. You have to shelf it. Remember that it's there. Maybe put it on a schedule a meeting in the future, or schedule time in the future to pull it out and re-examine it. But there comes a point when you just have to move on. Don't lose the data, and maybe readdress it. Anything else? Okay. Let me tell you a little more about upcoming webinars. Our basics webinar series, we're not doing that right now, but what we do have is a Q&A session on that, so you can sign up for that and you get all of the videos, all the recordings of the basics webinars, and then we have an hour Q&A session to walk through them. We are in the middle now of our advanced concepts, so upcoming sessions are making it better, which is process improvement. We'll go through systems analysis. We'll talk about traditional techniques, primarily waterfall, project management, and its flavors. There are variations to it. And then our final session is going to be on agile project management. The reasoning behind it, the techniques, the benefits, when you might use that. It's all on the website. Check it out. You can sign up from there. Have a great day. Thanks.